Really quickly, I'm going to pray just to start off our teaching time, and then we'll jump into our lesson. Lord, we thank you for this group. We thank you for your word, for what it is, for what it means, for how it speaks. We're just grateful for the opportunity to learn about it and to learn about why we should believe it. So, Lord, I just pray that you would reveal your truth to each family here, that we would be able to see your word as something extremely special by the end of this class. We love you, Lord. We just pray that you speak this morning, and that your voice would be the loudest. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. All right, so my first question for everyone, and maybe we can talk with our table for a moment. Why do you believe the Bible? Like, if this is the question we're going to be answering in the next 4 weeks, let's start by figuring out where we're at. So turn to your table for just a couple of minutes. I'll interrupt you fairly quickly maybe, and just try to think of a couple of reasons why some people at your table would say they believe the Bible. All right, so do we have any good reasons that anyone's come up with at their tables? Lucy? No, wait, say that again? Nothing in the Bible has ever been unproved. Ooh, there's some gravity to that statement. I like it. Okay, Austin?
It makes the most sense.
It makes the most sense. I think I would agree. Anything else? Okay, I'm kind of proud we didn't go down the route, but it's a good route, and in the way that the world and the culture is today, there's a big importance based on personal stories, isn't there? You guys see that? Where it's like, well, I tried it and it worked for me, right? No one said that, but that's a pretty big argument, and it does carry some weight to say, well, it changed my life and it worked for me, but there's a downside to that argument as well, that people in other faiths can say that about their religion and their holy book too. Right? Couldn't you see someone who's Muslim saying, well, I tried the Quran and the Quran worked for me? So there's this idea where we don't want to discredit stories completely. We use stories here like for baptisms on Sunday morning. We share stories and it's extremely powerful. Stories are still very important. But I think that when Jesus says that he's the truth, that there's an aspect of certainty and rigidness, firmness that comes with him saying, or with him being truth and with us being able to say, well, there's some sort of standard of truth outside of just this worked for me that we can trust the Bible with. And so my hope is by the end of these 4 weeks, we would all be able to answer this question really, really well. And here's the answer that we're going to be teaching. I didn't come up with it. I'll tell you that. I think some parents who registered, I think before Friday, got an email, and I was very clear I did not come up with this. A guy named Vodi Bakum came up with this outline. I tried to see if I could rewrite it better, and I couldn't. So I'm like, great, we're going to stick with it, because why fix something that ain't broken? So this is what he says, and I think that it's a really good standard for us to start with. So he says, I choose to believe the Bible because the Bible is a reliable collection of historical documents written by eyewitnesses in the lifetime of other eyewitnesses. It records supernatural events that take place in fulfillment of specific prophecies and claims that the writings are divine rather than human in origin. You can write that down if you want to in your workbook. We got a page, the big with all the lines, the big one with all the lines. You can feel free to write that down. And you may look at that and say, wow, those are a lot of big words, and that's a lot of information. But we're going to be spending the next 4 weeks, including this week, breaking this idea apart a little bit and trying to figure out and understand this statement. Because here's the deal, anyone can make a statement, right? Anyone can make a statement and even claim that it's true. What we're going to attempt to do in this class is not just make a statement and claim that it's true, but we're also going to show the argumentation. We're going to back up this statement. We're going to show you why the statement's true, because I think it is. Now, I don't think the Bible needs to be fought for or defended, right? God is like a lion. Has anyone ever seen a lion at a zoo before? Or not at a zoo, maybe on a safari trip or, I don't know, Animal Kingdom or something? A lion does not need to be defended. You just let them loose, and they do all the fighting themselves. And that's how God and his word are. We're not trying to defend God's word. We're just trying to provide a framework off of which we can build stronger faith and trust in who God is. So you might think to yourselves, like, okay, so this is kind of cool, right? Like, we've got this big fancy thing. Where does it come from, though? Like, where do these points actually come from? And the cool thing is these points actually come from the Bible. So in 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 16 through 21, it says this: "For we did not follow cleverly devised stories when we told you about the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ in power, but we were eyewitnesses of his majesty. He received honor and glory from God the Father when the voice came to him from the majestic glory, saying, 'This is my Son whom I love, with him I'm well pleased.' We ourselves heard this voice that came from heaven when we were with him on the sacred mountain. We also have the prophetic message as something completely reliable, and you will do well to pay attention to it, as to a light shining in a dark place, until the day dawns and the morning star rises in your hearts. Above all, you must understand that no prophecy of Scripture came about by the prophet's own interpretation of things. For prophecy never had its origin in the human will, but prophets, though human, spoke from God as they were carried along by the Holy Spirit." So what Peter's writing about here is kind of a few things, but he is writing about Scripture and how the apostles came about writing much of the New Testament. And so I think the standard applies to the Old Testament as well, and we can hopefully maybe get into that a little bit. But he talks about how they didn't follow, they're not devised stories. Sometimes people think, oh, well, the New Testament authors were just lying about that. Peter very clearly is saying here, we didn't lie about this. We saw this stuff happen. We were eyewitnesses. And we ourselves heard the voices from heaven when Jesus got baptized. We were experiencing it. And as we think about, this is, again, as we're going down this is like an overview for the whole course, or the class. We were eyewitnesses. We were with him. We saw it. There's a prophetic message that is in the Scriptures, and that Jesus actually fulfills prophecy. We heard all about that in first service. Thanks, Jim. He did all my legwork for me today. There's a lot of prophecy in the Bible specifically about Jesus, and it's fulfilled prophecy in Jesus. And all of those things then get to our point where we have a divine authorship. We get to the final point of it's written by God. So we're going to be going on a little bit of a journey here. But I'm sure that you're looking at this passage and this verse and saying, okay, David, that sounds cool and all, but wait a second. You just used the Bible to explain why you believe the Bible. Doesn't that seem a little, like, I don't know, one-sided, a little faulty, maybe? Has anyone ever heard of circular reasoning? Anyone heard of circular reasoning? We got Alex in the back. Let's go, Alex. Okay, so this is the next slide is perfect. So the circular reasoning is the idea that two things are true because they say so. So I actually looked this up in the dictionary, because that's where you go for all wisdom, right, is the dictionary. That's not true, but, you know, it defines words well. And this is also in our notebook as we're following along. Just want to make sure we know that. These are the two examples that we got of circular reasoning in at least the dictionary that I looked back at. So example A for circular reasoning. What are electrolytes? Well, they're used in Gatorade. Why are electrolytes used in Gatorade? Well, because Gatorade gives you electrolytes. Perfect, right? There's no explanation going on here of what electrolytes are. It's just kind of this back and forth of what they're used in and how what they're used in gives them to you, but it doesn't explain any of the actual reasoning. The other example that was in the dictionary is, all right, the Bible's true. How do you know the Bible's true? Because the Bible said so. But how do you know that what it said is true? Well, because it said it was true. You see the problem that we're sitting in all of a sudden? You think, oh, is this circular reasoning? Am I making a logical fallacy? Am I breaking the laws of logic in order to believe that the Bible is truth? I'm going to argue no. So that's where our next little slide comes into. This is kind of a digging your heels in moment. with this argument. First, the question is, do you believe the Bible is the supreme source of all truth? Do you believe that? Yes, I believe that. I believe the Bible is the supreme source of all truth. If the Bible is the supreme source of all truth, and I go to another text or another document in order to defend the supremacy of the Bible, I am actually undermining the supremacy of the Bible. I'm saying the Bible is good enough for all things except defending itself. That's not circular reasoning. That's digging my heels in. That's drawing a line in the sand and saying, no, I actually believe the Bible is the supreme source of all truth, so that's where I'm going to go to be able to prove what is or is not true. So if you go to another text, you can go to other texts. There are other texts that help support the Bible. But if you just go to other texts, you're actually undermining the truth that's actually in the Bible and saying, well, it's not actually supreme enough to answer why I should trust it or to answer what it actually is. So that's why I think it's important that we go to the Bible to find our answer. And it's important to understand that going to the Bible to find our answer is not us being dumb. It's actually us making a statement that's very strong. It's taking a stance. And so that's not circular reasoning. Now, today we're going to specifically be talking about the Bible as a reliable collection of historical documents. So, there's 3 key words there that we need to understand. The first one is reliable. What does the word reliable mean? You can look at the slide if you want to. It's on there. Trustworthy. Thank you. Reliable. I can trust what it says. And the interesting thing about it being reliable is that it's historically reliable. So not only can you trust what it says now, but you can trust that what it says now is what it said 2,000 years ago when it was written. There's a very strong piece of reliability that we have with the Bible. It's a collection. Does anyone know what makes the Bible a collection? Yes?
Multiple books and authors?
Yes. It's got multiple books and multiple authors. So the Bible's made out of 66 books. Those 66 books are written from 40 different authors over 2,000 year period of time. So I would say that that's a collection of historical documents, right? Over 2,000 years of time, 40 authors, 66 books. And the crazy thing to me about it is it all tells one cohesive story. Disney can't even make the Star Wars canon work right anymore. And that's been like 40 years. It's crazy to me to think that our own stories that we make up, we can't even keep in line, and yet God's telling a story over the course of 2,000 years, and he kept it all in one cohesive, like nothing breaks canon. It's all there, and it all makes sense. And so then they're historical as well. They trace history. So that's important because as we look at archaeology, right? We look at people who go out to the Middle East and they dig up stuff. The number one funded and used, I guess, tool of archaeology is biblical archaeology. The most archaeologists that are working right now are working on things that have to do with the Bible. Things that have to do with either verifying or trying to unverify different stories throughout the Bible. And the crazy thing is, we keep finding more and more stuff that just proves that the Bible stuff happened when it said it happened. Like, that's crazy to think of, is that it's historical. It's true stories. So we've got a couple of graphs here that I think are super important and I want us to walk through. So this is the first one. And we're visualizing the number of biblical manuscripts. I took both of these pictures out of The New Evidence That Demands a Verdict by Josh McDowell, in case anyone wants to read through it. So this is giving us a visual of understanding biblical manuscripts. So who's heard of like the Iliad, the Odyssey, Plato? I'm trying to think of other people that are like historical authors. Anyone I'm missing? Homer. We'll take Homer. We'll throw him in there. Yeah? You've just heard of it? I'll take that you've heard of it. Me too. We'll get there. We'll read them, right? So you take like all of those pieces of classical literature, the average stack, if you were to stack all of the manuscripts, ancient manuscripts of those texts Each one on its own is about 4 feet tall. Anyone here about 4 feet tall? Perfect, I'll take it. About your height then. Around here-ish, I'm guesstimating. If you took all of the manuscripts from all of the ancient texts outside of the Bible, and you compiled all of them together, you would get about 1,792 feet of text, which is the height of the One World Trade Center. So anyone been to New York? It's one of the tallest buildings in New York is the One World Trade Center. This thing's massive. That's the height of all of the texts for all the other stuff that's not the Bible. The New Testament alone, we've got a mile of ancient historical manuscripts or fragmented manuscripts, which is almost 3 times the size of the World Trade Center. Just the New Testament alone. The Old Testament is even bigger than that, 1.5 miles high. So just with the biblical manuscripts that we have today and fragmented manuscripts that we have today, comparing that to all of the other ancient literature, we have about 6 times more ancient manuscripted evidence or texts for the Bible. That's what I would call embarrassing. We have way too many texts. So what we look at there is, what this says is, well, this stuff, we can rely on the words that we have in this Bible here, because we can see all of that stuff from the ancient texts and say, oh, they pretty much all match up. So we can know the words that we have in here are the actual words because we have more ancient manuscripts than any other ancient text in the world. Is that crazy? I think that's crazy. Okay, and then we've got a kind of a little bit more of a graphed breakdown. What this is really showing us that's important here is that these manuscripts are not all in the same language. This is a big deal, right? And I'll get to why it's a big deal in a minute. But we have ancient manuscripts for all of the Bible, mostly in Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic. But the other 2 noteworthy kind of VIPs in this are Coptic and what was the other one? I wrote it down too. Hold on. Syriac. There we go, Coptic and Syriac. Those are the other 2 big languages that we have. But as you see in the graph, what it gets down to is our total number of biblical manuscripts are over 66,000. Which means if you wanted to kind of break it down, that's over 1,000 per each book of the Bible. If it was broken down evenly, I don't think it necessarily is, because some books are a lot smaller than others, but that's basically our breakdown. Almost 1,000 fragmented, at least fragmented documents showing us what is going on here. Now, there are some gaps in history that people like to poke at, though. And people say, well, you can't really trust what the Bible has to say because of like a period of time like the Dark Ages, right? There's this whole period of time, like 500 years, where no one was keeping track of nothing going on in the world. Who's to say that there wasn't a monk somewhere who decided to go and change some stuff in the texts? Well, let's look at that. We've got our little overzealous monk argument here. It's a monk monkey. You get it?
No.
It's a... Okay, never mind. So the argument is, or the question is, could a monk or a group of monks realistically change anything in our biblical ancient manuscripts without getting caught? Because if we've got this 500-year period where there's this argument about this, can we actually do it? Yes.
Is that what this stack of copies is about?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
That, like our number of manuscripts?
Like somebody couldn't just change it because there's so many copies all over the place?
Right.
Anybody could just check and see, well, this one obviously is wrong.
Right, exactly. So we can actually, and we do this. So like with the Dead Sea Scrolls, they're like 99% correct. What happened was someone missed a letter or a punctuation mark or a little decorative whatever on it, and the scribe said, well, that's wrong, so we need to go and discard it. So they would hide them in caves because they wouldn't use them. They're not right, so they would discard them. So the Dead Sea Scrolls, when people say, well, they're not quite right, it's because we can actually take other texts and compare them with them and say, okay, well, yeah, they're not quite right, but it's like because someone messed up on a letter. Like we can look from copy to copy and understand that, okay, we've got something here that we can pull it all together, all the sources together, yes, and then say, we know for certain that what we have is what we're supposed to have. So for these overzealous monks, if they were to actually get away with this, I've thought of 7 steps, I'm sure there might be a few more, that they would have to go through in order to change anything in the ancient manuscripts of significance. So people thought that they would change it to make their own points, to make political power moves, something along those lines. That's kind of the argument. So they give a motive behind it, which is fair. So these monks would have to first lie in thousands of manuscripts. They'd have to find all these manuscripts all over the world and lie in all of them, so come up with some lie. Then they would have to remember the lie and copy it perfectly every time in every manuscript and not get caught. Then, you think that's crazy, then they'd have to learn to lie perfectly in Greek, Hebrew, Coptic, Syriac, and Aramaic, plus some other languages that we had looked at. They'd have to learn those languages perfectly, be able to lie in those languages perfectly, sneak into more places, change all of those manuscripts in all of those languages, and not mess up in any of those languages to change it. I took 10 years of Spanish growing up, guys. I don't know any Spanish. Like, I find it very unlikely that a group of monks would be able to pull something like this off. They still can't get caught. Then they have to change all the references in all of the writings of the early church fathers and still not get caught. So apart from our ancient manuscripts, we also have writings from the early church fathers. So early pastors and bishops and popes and things like that. And if we just took the writings of the early church fathers, we could almost completely rewrite the Bible just from their commentaries and their notes. We don't even need the ancient manuscripts to be able to do that. We could just go back to the early church. So they would also have to change and edit all of the early church fathers' writings as well to all agree and lie in the same place and still not get caught. Does that sound very likely? No, I don't think it sounds likely at all. I think it's a dumb argument, to be fair. Then there's the argument about how the Bible is translated. Well, the Bible that you have isn't reliable, right, because it's been translated hundreds and hundreds of times, right? Has anyone ever played the game Telephone? Yeah. If we like buddy up a couple of tables together, could we do a really quick game of Telephone? Okay, we're gonna do a really quick game of Telephone. Buddy up with like the table behind you or in front of you or something, find a little group, and someone's gonna come up with some sort of phrase, keep it kind of short, and see if you can get the phrase through your entire group without it changing. All right, so we're gonna do a quick game of Telephone. Break. You did okay? I wanna hear kind of how it went. So, let's see. Okay, we'll start with this table here. What was your first clue? Or the original phrase?
The original phrase was, I like peanut butter on my apples.
I like peanut butter on my apples was phrase 1, and what was the last phrase?
By the end it was, I like peanut butter cream apples.
I like peanut butter cream apples. Very good, I like it. What?
Cream and apples. Peanut butter cream and apples.
I like peanut butter, cream and apples, and then green become cream.
That's good. That's not that far, though. That's not bad. This table, what do we get?
I'm a walrus and I eat dead cows.
So it started with, I'm a walrus and I eat dead cows. And what did it end with? I feel like...
I want to have a war so I can eat cows.
I want to have a war so I can eat cows. That's good. Very different. Middle tables, what do we got? Well, here, or you, this cross table will do. What do we start with?
A monkey ate an apple on the first day of fall to see what it would taste like.
Ooh, that's a full sentence. A monkey ate an apple on the first day of fall to see what it would taste like. And it ended the exact same. Fantastic, wow. A+. Molly?
Can I do the one because we did 2 of them? Can I do the second one?
Sure.
It was purple potatoes wear pants, but Lucy heard potatoes don't wear pants.
So from purple potatoes wear pants to potatoes don't wear pants. You're back 2 tables. Where do we start?
We started with Amazing Grace.
That was
Amazing Grace.
And then
Cheeseburgers are yummy.
cheeseburger is yummy.
Cheeseburgers are yummy. And what did you end with? You You can pick your friends, you can pick your nose. All right, Rodney, I got to hear. What'd your group get?
All right, we did a couple super easy ones.
Okay.
Even as easy as one of them was, it still didn't work. It was avocados are great, and you turned it up as avocados have grapes.
They don't have grapes. That's true. So that's how the game of telephone works. And that's how a lot of people think the Bible was translated, right? So like you had the here's the Hebrew and the Greek alphabets. People think we started with that, and then, in the Middle Ages, we got the King James, and then we got the German ones, and then we got the English ones kind of from there. So they think that we kind of translated like from Hebrew and Greek to maybe Latin to English to German to modern, like to everything else. Exactly. Some people think, well, that's how the Bible is translated. So you can't actually trust that through, like a game of telephone, you can't trust that avocados have grapes, right? Because that's not what you started with. The problem is, so I actually have friends who went to school for Bible translating, and they work with like Wycliffe, and they work with companies that translate Bibles. So in order for them to get the NIV, current one, this is, I think, very newly printed too. It doesn't tell me, but it's fine, it is. In order to get this, they didn't go from the NIV, they didn't go back to like the 1995 New American Standard to translate it into the NIV. They went back to the original text. So that's like playing the game of telephone, and instead of ending with avocados have grapes, you would just have the last person turn to the first person, and the first person would say, avocados are great. And then the last person would say, avocados are great. That's how we get modern Bible translation. We go back to the original text every single time. And I think that's important to note that adds to it's a reliable collection of historical documents. We can trust that the Bible says what it says. Now, the last point that we need to make is that it is a collection, right? So I kind of said this earlier. It is a collection. However, there are also some books that are not in our collection of the Bible. And this is, again, a question that some people will bring up. If you've heard of like the Book of Mormon, well, that's a book that some people would say, well, I've got my Bible, and then I've also got my Book of Mormon that kind of tags on at the end. That's a part of the canon of Scripture. That's part of what the Bible is. Or you'd have, especially in the Catholic community, you would have the Apocrypha. Well, we've got the Gospel of Thomas, and we've got the Book of Maccabees, and we've got all these other books that are part of our canon of the Bible. Why do we leave them out as Christians, as Protestant, evangelical, Bible-thumping, devil-stomping Christians? Why do we do that? Well, there's a few reasons, I think, that we would leave out certain books. Lowest hanging fruit would be probably the Book of Mormon. It teaches a different gospel. It teaches a different person of Jesus and a different person of God than the rest of the Bible. And so if you're looking at the rest of the Bible and then you're looking at another thing and going, well, I don't know if this belongs or not, wait a minute. It doesn't actually fit in with anything else that the actual Bible is saying. That's a good indication that we probably shouldn't add that into our Bible. And we have that happen with the Book of Mormon. We have that happen with the Book of the Maccabees. We have that happen with the Gospel of Thomas. Other books that are still ancient books written by potential people who lived around the same time. We look at them and go, well, that doesn't really fit in the story that God has told, and it doesn't come across as being written by God. Because if God wrote it, he wouldn't have any plot holes, right? So there are some plot holes in some of those other texts that we go, well, we can't with good conscience leave those in because it tells a different story. And it's from a different source. Because the Bible we have is written by God. We will get to that later. So, the Bible is a reliable collection of historical documents. Let's all say that. The Bible is a reliable collection of historical documents. Fantastic. And I just want to end with, we're going to do our project. As we're doing our project, if you have any questions, I'm going to try to walk around and I'll talk about any questions you might have at your table for a few minutes.